Welcome to the inaugural Meaty Boyz podcast. We're going to bring you all the wrestling news from all over. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Gardy3. You're used to seeing me on the N1 podcast. This is our boy, the guy who makes it all happen. We can call him the network. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Gene Walzak. Yo, Gene, how you doing?
I'm phenomenal. I'm feeling good. Softball game got rained out. I'm happy I can join in tonight. I'll be here every week. I can be here. Love talking some wrestling. We've been looking to get a wrestling podcast on the network forever, and now we're here.
Oh, absolutely. I'm ready to cook. Hopefully we'll be joined by our other guy, Mo Better, later in the show. But for anybody that doesn't know, I've been watching wrestling since like 2006. That's when I really first started getting into it. So I've been watching it for a while. Just kind of became a hardcore fan closer to like 2011. Been following it ever since. Gene, when did you first start getting into wrestling?
1990. I remember, man, as far back as Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, the Ultimate Warrior. I'll never forget the night where Papa Shango was beating up Hulk Hogan and Jim Ross is on the call. There's no one left in the locker room. And the return of the Ultimate Warrior, Bret the Hitman Hart, British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. Yeah, I mean, that long. Now, I will say this. I took a huge hiatus. I left wrestling for 10 years. So the time that you picked it up, 2006 to about 2017, I was not a wrestling fan. So I missed almost all of the Cena era, almost all of the Punk era. So I had a lot of catching up to do when I started getting back into it. So, you can fill them in from 2006 to 2016. I'll give you the old school stuff, and then we can all talk about what's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the only time I almost stopped watching was in like 2019, 2020, right before the start of AEW, because the product wasn't going very great, and I was starting to be like, I might have to take a little break, but then we got AEW and it helped draw me back in. And speaking of AEW, we're gonna start there first. We got a nice, interesting tidbit in an interview. Ric Flair decided to tell us he pitched turning on Sting to close AEW Revolution, and he hasn't heard from them since. For anybody that doesn't follow AEW, in the Revolution pay-per-view back in March, Sting had his retirement match. Him and Darby Allin versus the Young Bucks. Ric Flair was brought along for the ride to be there and help support Sting. And for some reason, he decided to pitch that he should be the one standing tall at the end of Revolution. And I don't understand that at all. I don't even understand why Ric Flair would even pitch that idea, because to me, it just doesn't make sense. Because what's the end game like? Raise your hand if you're dying for a Ric Flair match in the year 2024. Unfortunately,
I'm not dying for a Ric Flair match. And I think that Ric Flair has this whole issue with him making it about himself. He had the WWE, has an AEW. And listen, I like the concept of Ric Flair turning against Sting. I love that concept. If it wasn't Sting's retirement match and he wasn't done. Like, I love the concept if like that he really wasn't retiring and we were going to keep Sting around and we were going to make everyone think it was going to be his retirement. And then Ric Flair turned on him and you got like somewhat of a feud, and not Ric Flair fighting Sting, but maybe Ric Flair brought someone in that was more on his side to fight for him. I understand that storyline, but for it to be Sting's retirement match, and he's really retiring. So what, did you just want him to go out laying on the canvas? Like, what's the point of the retirement match then? Like, the lasting memory of Sting is he's going to have his ass beat in the middle of the carcass and get turned on by one of his longest friends. I don't know. I hate the concept.
That's where I was. My first thought was, wow, good job, Rick. Way to just be a dick and try to make your friend's retirement all about you. But
yeah, that's Rick for you, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the part that bothered me. It's like, what are you trying to do? Give me Ric Flair versus Darby Allin? Because there's a million Darby Allin matches I'd love to see, and Ric Flair's not on that list.
No.
If anybody didn't know, Ric Flair did have a match last year. It was like 2 years ago at this point, and he legitimately had a heart attack at the end of the match.
This third one.
Yeah, he admitted
it in the ring.
Yeah, he had multiple heart attacks in the ring the last time he tried to step into the ring. I ain't just trying to see that on live TV, so I'm really glad that AEW is like, nah, we're good. And they completely cut him off. They're not working with his energy drink company anymore. They're just not dealing with Ric Flair at all anymore. And after all the negativity he keeps in the news, he keeps popping up in the worst light. I get it. I just think it's time for Ric Flair to kind of just get out of the spotlight, but that's really never been Ric Flair for you. He always needs to be in the spotlight.
No, definitely. That's a Ric Flair thing. I will find it interesting, and I'm sure Charlotte will keep it professional, but Charlotte's eventually going to return to WWE. And I just find it interesting how Rick, her father, is taking a lot of turns for the worst against WWE to try to remain relevant. I'm not sure if he takes like a fallback role and comes crawling back to WWE or not, but I will find it interesting how Charlotte handles that.
I think that's just the best role for him at this point. Just come back, get your money on your Legends contract, and maybe occasionally show up to a Raw or SmackDown whenever they're in Carolina or near your house, and that's it. Like, we don't need to hear from you anymore, Rick. I appreciate what you did for the business, but just please go away at this point.
Yeah, old school Rick's different than this current Ric Flair.
Yeah, I like that's the thing. I want to remember Ric Flair for like going back and watching his matches in the 80s, him having 60-minute cage matches and his retirement match with Shawn Michaels. That's what I want to remember Ric Flair by. But anytime I see this and I see him in the news for getting into disputes with bar guests and just in bars, and it's just unfortunate because now the newer generation of wrestling fans are going to remember Ric Flair for just at this point just kind of being an old washed drunk, and when he should just be respected as one of the pioneers and one of the early greatest of all time candidates.
I mean, if you don't remember the Four Horsemen and Ric Flair's role with the Four Horsemen, then you're missing old Ric Flair, right? I'm talking about full Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen. That was prime Ric Flair. He had a great run in the early 2000s when they moved back to WWE from WCW, but I got to give Flair all the credit in the world for up until 2009, 2010. After that, I felt like Flair really just wanted to hang on to something that nobody else wanted him to hang on to.
Yeah, I remember watching him in TNA, and the first time I saw him in TNA, because I tuned in a little after Hulk Hogan got there, is him getting lowered from an ambulance in a mobility scooter. I'm like, this is how I see Ric Flair for the first time? And then I learned he got like choke slammed through the stage the week before. It's like, good Lord, man, just hang it up at this point.
Completely agree with you. I wish Rick the best. I hope that he comes back to WWE and just has his Legends contract. Maybe make him a manager. There's a lot of different things you can do. Ric Flair could still talk, right? You could still make him a manager for a guy that can't talk. That guy does not have that prowess on the microphone. I mean, sounds stupid, but I could see him coming back and being, I don't want to say a wise man like role, but like a manager like role for a guy like Braun Breaker who's really struggling with his promos, and having a guy in his corner to help him with those promos, especially because the old days with obviously Braun Breaker's father and uncle, Scott and Rick Steiner. Like, I could see that, right? Like, that would make logical sense for him to continue his career. But Ric Flair needs a Paul Heyman-like role and not a role where he's ultra involved in making everything about himself.
Yeah, and ironically, his own son-in-law is the guy that would really benefit from a mouthpiece Andrade in WWE. he can't really talk on the mic. He's kind of floating in irrelevancy. So I think Flair coming back to maybe help him out would be absolutely perfect.
I agree with that. That's a really good point.
Speaking of the WWE, we had Monday Night Raw. So I figured let's talk about some Monday Night Raw action. And how did we kick off the night? The return of Rhea Ripley. It looks like it's official. We're going to get Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan at SummerSlam. Rhea Ripley promised to not only end her title reign, but to end Liv Morgan's career. And of course, we had the shenanigans with Dominic Mysterio trying to win her trust back. I thought this was all absolutely hilarious. Like the whole Dominic Mysterio stuff they were doing all night was shades of Eddie Guerrero trying to win back China after everything happened between them, roses and everything. Gene, what did you think about that whole?
This is one of the best storylines in WWE. I think Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio with, I think the Judgment Day will be way more involved come SummerSlam. Obviously, I have my own projections and what I think will happen. And I think I think Finn Balor, not Seth Rollins, Finn Balor will be the person that ultimately turns on Rhea Ripley. I think the stipulation for SummerSlam is Dirty Dominic Mysterio is the special guest referee. You get a Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan match where Dom is the referee and they're fighting over their Dominic Mysterio and the WWE Women's title. I can't wait to see that. That's where I think this is headed. I think you get a Finn Balor real turn on Rhea Ripley, and I think that you'll see a babyface Rhea and a babyface Damian Priest. I think that sets up perfectly for Bad Blood. And I love the return of Rhea Ripley. I love what she's bringing to the table. But I got to give credit where credit is due. I never thought she was a great wrestler. I still don't think she's a good wrestler. Liv Morgan is a great entertainer. Now Rhea's a great wrestler, but Liv Morgan is, in my opinion, a bad wrestler. But man, she does a great job of selling and entertaining and playing a role. And she could not play this role any better than she has.
I 100% agree with that. I think they're just letting her show a lot more personality than what they did in her initial title run. And that almost feels like why it all went to crap. They just kind of try to make her this generic character, and now they're just kind of letting her be her and kind of be the entertainer she was always meant to be. And it's absolutely working out. This is arguably the best storyline that they got going on right now. And if it's not the best, it's definitely top 2.
I love the return, man. Brett, I predicted it. I knew it was going to happen on Raw 2 weeks ago. Well, now 9 days ago. But you see Damian Priest on the phone, and I'm like, that's Rhea. Rhea's coming back tonight. And then you see the match. They're finally going to match with Dominic and Liv versus Ray. I knew Rhea was coming back. I just didn't know how late it was going to be. I really want to see Rhea Ripley get her hands on Liv Morgan. But that's what the storyline is. It's telling you that you can't wait to see Rhea Ripley rip apart Liv Morgan. All the more reason I don't think that Rhea Ripley wins at SummerSlam.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. I think they'll play it smart. I don't think Rhea Ripley will get her hands on Liv Morgan. I think she'll get closer and closer and closer, but she'll just keep escaping her up until SummerSlam. And that's the smart thing to do. And I 100% agree. I don't see Liv Morgan's title reign ending quite yet. I think that there's too much meat on the bone in this feud for it to just end that quickly.
I agree completely.
So overall, that was absolutely fantastic. And who knows? Bad Blood is notorious for Hell in a Cell matches. This one could very well end up towards the Cell. The Hell in a Cell was always meant for more personal feuds and personal rivalries. And this is heading that direction. So
tell me this doesn't remind you of the Demon Finn Balor versus Edge in that Hell in the Cell matchup. This reminds you of that personal, that type of, I don't know. That's kind of where I see it as.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm hoping for it. I could see it being very entertaining. Keep it in the Cell, keep Dominic Mysterio out. And of course he somehow finds his way in eventually. And then see, I don't.
Do you think Dom turns on Rhea? or do you think it's someone else? Because I've been on record saying I think that it's Finn Balor, and I think Finn and JD turn on Rhea because they're tag team champions, and I think that they're gonna the Judgment Day will split as a faction. Do you think Dominic is the one that turns on Rhea? A lot of people think Dominic's gonna be the one that costs Rhea from getting her belt back. I think it's gonna be Finn.
I think SummerSlam, I think it's going to be Dom costing her belt inadvertently, kind of playing off to what he's been doing on accident. And I think when we hit the crescendo of this feud, maybe the next match, I think that's when we see it. Okay, maybe it's an ODQ match. Dom gets in the ring, but I think that's where we really see the Judgment Day completely fall apart. So I do agree. I don't think it's actually going to be Dom. I feel like that's just a whole red herring, but I also don't think the turn happens at SummerSlam. I think
I
they
do
save
love,
it.
I do love that they're playing off of the concept of mommy and daddy Dom. Like I love the concept of a power struggle between Dominic, who wants to be with Rhea, and Rhea's the stronger. And then you have that old school type relationship where Liv Morgan is, oh, daddy Dom, and you're my strong Dominic Mysterio. Like I love the concept of the strong woman kind of in control of the relationship with Rhea versus the woman that's playing the arm candy with Liv Morgan.
Yeah, two completely different dynamics, and I'm absolutely here for it. And I can't wait. I made sure to take off for SummerSlam, so I'll be able to see where the story goes. And
We
even
should
next
live
week,
stream SummerSlam.
what's up?
We should live stream SummerSlam.
Honestly, I was planning on it. I was going to hop on here and just go live during SummerSlam and do a live watch along.
Love that. Reaction videos, watch along. I'm with it. Mommy is back. That's right, Brandon.
Absolutely. And then after that opening segment, we had Big Bronson Reed versus Sheamus. Although I'm not really I don't get why they have to call Bronson Reed Big Bronson Reed. Like I can see that he's big. You don't need to tell me. You might as well just say, "Hey, here's his name. It's fat ass Bronson Reed." Like I don't get why do we need to add big before Bronson Reed? Just call him Bronson Reed. I can see that he's big. That's just one of the little details that will always bother me with Bronson Reed. But yeah, this is a fun match. But what kind of overshadowed the match after Sheamus defeated him? Pete Dunne came out and turned on Sheamus, and now it looks like we might be getting Pete Dunne versus Sheamus, which is going to be an absolute hard-hitting war, and I'm here for it.
The old brawling brutes. Look, I'll tell you, Bronson Reed, Big Bronson Reed, doesn't matter, Bronson Reed. He is the definition of a guy that you throw in as a filler in a match. That's a strong guy that a guy that you're trying to bring up can beat, that is big enough to be involved in a feud. I feel bad for Sheamus. I really feel like he doesn't have a real role right now in the WWE. And I think this is more of an on-the-shelf match and a filler match for a night. I could care less about what happened in this match, and I think I think the storyline is really weak.
Yeah, the match itself, I just kind of almost skipped over it. The only part that caught my eye was the Pete Dunne turn after the match. Overall, I do like Bronson Reed. I think he could be a great mid-card monster for years to come. But yeah, this match it was fine, but nothing to really catch your eye. But honestly, it was better than what came next. The fall off of Selena Vega needs to be studied because she went from women's championship match 2 weeks ago to last night. She fights Sonya Deville and loses in about a minute. So I kind of feel bad for her because I thought they'd at least let her be somewhat competitive, but they just let her come back and Deville come back and absolutely destroy Vega. So this was another just match, complete filler that was just there to build up Deville. So
I think the Sonya Deville thing is interesting. Excuse me, man. I have a tickle. But I think one of the biggest things that you look at when you see Sonya Deville is you have so many women, and this goes to the Triple H thing of bringing back the United States title and Intercontinental title for women's, being able to have extra belts, because I feel like you have so many women that have roles with the WWE that don't really have places. And I feel like the only way you can get those is through factions. And I think that building a faction around Sonya Deville, who's a way better mouthpiece than the other two lackeys that they're basically going to surround her with Shayna Baszler, who's terrible on the microphone. She can't promo anything. Jesus, I forget her name, or she's so forgettable. I just feel like that it creates a faction in which Sonya Deville can be the mouthpiece for it. I think that you needed to be able to beat a Selena Vega up. Selena Vega is an absolute gatekeeper. She'll never win another women's title. She was in a women's title match just for Liv Morgan to get some in-ring rust out because she's going to be fighting mommy Zoe Stark. Thank you. But that's another one. Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler are just absolute awful on their microphone. I can watch them perform and wrestle, and they're not terrible at that. I cannot stand listening to either one of them talk. I think Shayna Baszler's character is awful. I love Sonya Deville adding to that to be able to give them a little bit more flair.
Yeah, I agree. The character work for Baszler is just very basic. I used to be in MMA. I'm going to beat you up now. It's very kind of. It almost feels like they're trying to make her almost like a female version of like Brock. They almost tried to steal his gimmick when he first came back to the WWE in 2012 without the Paul Heyman part of it. But no,
they did everything they could to put Shayna over. They gave her a match with Ronda Rousey to put her over. Like, there's anything they can do to put her over, they've done. Shayna Baszler is the Austin Theory of the women's division. Done everything they could to put them over and just can't do it.
Yeah,
Austin Theory beat John Cena at WrestleMania. Talk about one of the biggest mistakes in WWE history. We're going to promote this kid, Austin Theory, and have him beat John Cena. Austin Theory's awful. Shayna Baszler reminds me of the same thing.
I'll say they did the same thing with Shayna Baszler. If I remember correctly, I think it was it her a couple of years ago? They had her eliminate 5 out of 6 people in the women's elimination chamber. She cleared out the entire chamber by herself, and then proceeded to go lose at WrestleMania.
Not great.
Yeah, I do agree.
You've seen how bad her promos were before that. Like, you've seen how bad she was on the mic for those promos. Even the ones with Ronda. Like, oh, it's me. I've always been in the background. Like, Ronda this and Ronda that. Like, she played that card awful.
Yeah, that Vince had the weird obsession with Theory. The worst thing they could have done, honestly, and this might sound odd to say, is that he was overpushed, but once they took away his, like, selfie gimmick, that was almost it for him. Yeah. Because the selfie gimmick might not have been perfect, but at least that gave him a character. That almost gave him a direction. Once they took away the selfies and just tried to make him generic bad guy number.
Austin Theory is just a poor man Carmelo Hayes. It's the same thing, and Carmelo is just a lot better at it.
Yeah, the one thing I will give Theory props for is he absolutely knows how to sell a Stone Cold Stunner.
It's fair.
That was one of the greatest sells we've seen since The Rock. And like Scott Hall, though, that was amazing.
It's fair.
And of course, this was 10 out of 10. I'm looking forward to this match at SummerSlam. We got Priest versus Gunther. And they had a nice little face-off on the microphone. And the one thing I took away from it is even the fans that were really hesitant on Damian Priest, they look like they're ready to buy in now. We got a lot of fan support and a lot more just overall overwhelmingly positive reviews even going online. It's looking like people finally are like, hey, this guy's actually really good. And I think that ever since his title reign, Damian Priest has been awesome with the belt. Win or lose, I think he's definitely proven himself as a worthy main eventer for years to come for the company.
So I think that this has been like on the job training for Damian Priest to be like a headliner type wrestler. He was terrible at promos a year and a half ago, and then he won Money in the Bank, and he got better, and he got better, and he got better. And this is one of those things where when you do all these things for Triple H, and you do all these things for the organization, and you do all these things for the WWE, they'll eventually push you and push you in the right direction. I think when he won the Money in the Bank, they had no thought process of him cashing that in at WrestleMania the next year. I think their storytelling was short term, and I think what ended up happening was WWE got all these people back. They got, CM Punk came back. They had the Bloodline feud like that was so good, that feud with Jey Uso, and they had real no way for him to cash in that Money in the Bank. They just kept flaunting it with Finn Balor and Seth Rollins and having those matches where you could just see him maybe cash in, maybe not. When they had him finally cash in and win the title, I'll tell you right now, El Capitan, Damian Priest, has been better each week. His promos with Jey Uso were very good. His promos with Seth Rollins, now Seth can carry anyone through a promo, but his promos with Seth Rollins were good. I was really interested to see how the first real promo with Damian and Gunther turned out, and it turned out way better than I expected. I know Gunther can sell a promo. I love his character. He lives in his persona. If you see Gunther out anywhere, he is living the Gunther persona. He's believable, which makes him such a great character. Damian Priest was not that up until about 6 to 7 months ago, and he's become better and better at that throughout the process. I got to give Damian credit.
No, his improvement has been absolutely phenomenal, and that's kind of the great thing with Damian is I think he's just going to keep getting better and better. He's clearly shown that he has the passion to keep improving, to keep working on it. And just each passing week, he's, like you said, he's just getting better and better and better. So overall, I'm excited to see where this ends up going. At first, I think it was a foregone conclusion that Damian Priest loses to Gunther at SummerSlam. I still think he does, but now, maybe not. If he keeps...
Well, there's no way they're not having Gunther mainline the Bash at Berlin, which is right after SummerSlam, and he's got a headline with the title.
Hey, I could see this seems like the WWE thing to do, right? Is don't find a way to have Damian retain at SummerSlam, but let Gunther win at Bash at Berlin.
I could see that.
I think he's going to end up with it regardless at one of the two pay-per-views. But since we're expecting Damian to win or to lose at SummerSlam, I could very well see the Triple H just going, okay, well, now Damian's going to win at SummerSlam just despite every single one of you. And honestly, I wouldn't be mad at that. Even if it's just to hold on to it for another couple weeks so Gunther could get his moment in Berlin. I would take it.
I'm with you both ways. I'm fine with whatever direction they go here. I think Gunther is the more long-term option. The only thing I don't like about making Gunther the champion, and you guys can argue with me all you want, I think it buries Seth Rollins. And I know Seth is so good that he can get to the starlight and have great promos regardless of having the belt. But that World Heavyweight Championship I feel like should be a Seth Rollins staple. And Seth and Gunther will be a great match when it happens. But you can't give Gunther the belt and then have Seth take it off him. So it's one of those things where when Gunther gets it, he's going to hold it for a while. I could see there being a triple threat match at Bash of Berlin with Gunther, Damian, and Seth Rollins. So there's a lot of different things that can happen with it.
I could almost see that happening too. I was thinking that because it almost feels like that they're starting to involve Seth Rollins in the whole CM Punk and Drew McIntyre story. And at this point, I can almost see Seth costing CM Punk the match against Drew McIntyre and then having a triple threat match at Bash at Berlin, and then Punk returns the favor. And so I could see Seth Rollins in this world title field sooner rather than later. And a triple threat match between the three will be an absolute banger.
Completely agree.
And of course, there was a Damian Priest match to follow, him versus Braun Strowman. I
I
haven't
give him
heard
credit for getting the South of Heaven on Braun. That was incredible. I loved watching the end of that.
Nah, me too. I was worried about Braun when he did his spot where he runs around the ring and he went over that barricade and he started holding his knee. He sold that really well because for a minute I was like, did he just blow his knee out? Because he sold that way too well. But it's kind of haven't heard any reports, so I'm assuming that he's just fine and it was just a really good sell job. And overall, it was a fun match. That once again, that South to Heaven chokeslam on Braun, super impressive. Absolutely love to see it. And then, of course, we we were talking about them earlier, Chance Carter, and they took on Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler, and the new faction got their win. This match was what it was. It was you want to establish Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler as a threat, and this is exactly what this match did. It was filler. It was to just drive home how dangerous these ladies were, and it did its job. So overall, nothing to write home about, but it served its purpose.
I could see that the Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark tag team winning a tag team titles with Sonya Deville being the leader of the group. Like I could see that, and that's kind of where I feel like they're headed towards.
I hope they do. Anybody that can make the tag titles relevant at this point, I think they need to really start working on the tag titles or just completely get rid of them, because we just had another title change and I don't think I've seen the belt really on TV in the past 3 weeks now since they won the titles. So overall, the women's tag titles are just infuriating to me because they have so much potential, but they just don't do anything with them. We haven't taken the time to really build up a lot of women tag teams, which we're building up this new team now, which I'll take. Give them the tag team titles. But I either want them to just at this point do something with these tag titles or just get rid of them and replace them with the U.S. and women's intercontinental title.
They did their best to build up the tag team titles for when they had Bianca Belair basically holding the tag team titles with the Storm is coming. You were never getting those titles off of them unless it was a triple threat match, though. No one was taking a pin unless there was a heel turn by Jade Cargill or Bianca or a triple threat match. You weren't getting the titles off those women. So in order to build up the division, you can't have two absolute superstars like Jade and Bianca holding those belts. That just can't happen. You have to build up another team. And Sonya Deville is the mouthpiece and is the face that can build up a team. Like, look, it's very similar to what happened with Dakota Kai and Kairi Sane. It's very similar what happened with that tag team when you have a women's group around them to build around them. Damage control. I think this is a stronger, meatier, bullier version of damage control.
Honestly, that's a good way to put it. I could absolutely, and if they do come out with a women's mid-card title like the U.S. or Intercontinental, I could see this being the faction that just holds all the gold. Give Shayna the U.S. title or Intercontinental, which one's on her brand, and then give the other two the tag titles. And just make them a really dominant faction and let it run for a while. Like, I'm all for overly dominant factions, so let them run and let them build up prestige for the title and really put somebody over at the end.
Completely agree with you.
And of course, next we had Drew McIntyre.
Is there anyone that's become better at promos than Drew in the last year? SummerSlam of last year, I want to remind you. SummerSlam of last year, we had it was almost like a retirement match for Drew McIntyre fighting Gunther for the Intercontinental title. Everything that was going on with his career, they didn't know if he was going to re-sign with WWE. He was on his way in and out. He was still a good guy. The heel turn of Drew McIntyre has been one of the best 12-month swings you will ever see a wrestler ever have. He's so good at it.
Yeah, and it's all super entertaining. Like when you really live your persona and start doing the stuff like he's doing, also not only in the ring but outside of it, like on Twitter and making the T-shirt with him standing over CM Punk's grave after taking him out, like it's just all top-notch work. And the if you want to look on how to reinvent yourself, look no further than Drew McIntyre, because he's definitely done it, and he's done it at the top level to a point where now he is the main event. He's arguably in the hottest story in WWE at the moment. Him versus Punk at SummerSlam or whenever they have it. Maybe if Punk can't get cleared, maybe this is a match for Bad Blood. But overall, yeah, the Drew McIntyre's improvement in just every facet has been absolutely insane, and good for him. He deserves it.
I completely agree with you. I think Drew's storytelling has been incredible. I think it goes back to War Games when you added him to the Judgment Day with his beef with Jey Uso and being involved with Jey, like not welcoming him on Monday Night Raw because the issues he had with the bloodline and the constant woe is me and the losses to Seth Rollins. And if it wasn't for this, Seth, I would have got you. I would have been title. And everything's an excuse. And it plays perfect to that heel role. If it wasn't for this, I would have won. If it wasn't for CM Punk getting involved, you know, it's great to be able, and granted, any babyface argument can be, well, you started a lot of these drama. You started this by standing over to CM Punk grave, and did you not expect retaliation? But Drew has been so good at this. There's actually a good faction of WWE fans that feel bad for Drew. They feel like he should be title or he's being cheated. And that's exactly what you want in this scenario. You want there to be a faction of fans that are actually behind him. The best heels are ones that have a fan base behind them, a la Roman Reigns.
100%. And they've done phenomenal, and everybody's done phenomenal in making it so Drew is definitely the bad guy, but he's a very sympathetic bad guy where not everybody's going to hate the man. I could very well see CM Punk getting some boos going into SummerSlam. Drew McIntyre's been that good. I think it's going to be a pretty close to split crowd, since they're both very over right now.
I think CM Punk is definitely more of the face of the two. I think it's you hear a lot of CM Punk chants during Drew McIntyre's, but I think that speaks so well to what Drew has been doing as far as being a heel. Like he has made the crowd have an emotional response to you, whether it be positive or negative. And that's exactly what you want. The last thing you want is for the crowd to not have an emotional. You don't want your aura to be Solo Sikoa.
Yeah, that's fair. Half the time I don't even know what to think about Solo. Now he doesn't even look like the most dominant member in his own faction.
He's not. Jacob Fatu is.
Jacob came in and destroyed 3 main eventers and then just wiped out the best tag team on SmackDown.
But you do realize what they're doing there, right? They're giving Jacob the Solo role in that bloodline to kind of make Solo bigger. Like, notice he's the enforcer. So what was Solo to Roman? The enforcer. Like, he's giving him the Solo role in the new bloodline to kind of big up Solo.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited to see if that happens at SummerSlam, if we finally get the return of Roman and see that storyline unfold, and that's going to be absolute cinema.
Main event, Jey Uso. You're talking about the match with him and Dominic Mysterio from Mommy's Heart.
Yeah. Poor Dom once again. He was the victim of unfortunate timing. You know, Rhea, if you happen to listen to this, my boy Dom ain't done nothing wrong.
Your boy Dom. You're talking about a great heel. Dominic Mysterio has done such a great job reinventing, from when he wore that like Hulk Hogan lookalike shirt to being Rey Mysterio's kid to what he's become. He's become the most hated heel in WWE. And that says so much for your storytelling and your character development, is that people hate you so much you can't talk without the crowd booing over you. All credits to Dominic Mysterio, man. Yeah. I give him all the credit, and I'll say this, right? I know Santi and you and a lot of others that watch WWE or it's not Dom, it's not Dom. I'll tell you right now, he's got the best position in the WWE right now. He's got two women that are fighting over him. He's constantly being seduced week after week by one of them. I have no there's nothing bad I could say about Dominic Mysterio.
No, that's fair. I think I just have a connection to Dom because me and him, just like him, I used to also have a mullet. So I can't hate a fellow with a mullet. But it's funny because I remember when he first started getting all those boos, a lot of people were saying, "Yeah, the crowd noise is piped in." But then you actually go into the building and you realize, oh, it's not actually piped in. He's just drawing that much attention and heat to himself. So the fact that he just went from Rey Mysterio 2.0 generic good guy to this, Dom is also another guy that's just absolutely incredible. He's been absolutely phenomenal, and he's almost trying to take a page out of he's almost perfectly copying Eddie Guerrero in his work with China and when he got over when he was younger, and he's doing it very well.
And I don't want to get off this without talking about. I'm a huge Jey Uso fan. And I think I'm the only person in the WWE community that thinks that what they're doing right now with Jey Uso is terrible. It bothers me so much what they're doing with him. They are using him 100% for his entrance, and he's an incredible entertainer. They need to get him a real finisher and not the Uso splash and a super kick that he does 65 times in a match. I'll tell you right now, and this might sound so ridiculous to you, but Jey Uso could be a modern day. I'm not saying he'll ever be as great, but a modern day Shawn Michaels. He's that energetic. He's that charismatic. And he needs more work on the microphone. And he needs to be able to control his breathing because you can hear every breath he takes on the microphone. But man, is he entertaining to me. I wish they would make it such a gimmick, what they're doing each week with his entrance and coming out of the crowd. And I like the yeet, but the yeet reminds me awful lot of the yeah. And the yeah reminds me awful lot of the what. And I think a lot of that has to do with WWE playing on an athlete that's over instead of really building up a storyline. And what's his storyline right now? What is Jey Uso's storyline right now? What is he doing? He's just entertaining the crowd and getting fireflies and getting people to say yeet. And I think he's better than that. I think he has more of a story than that.
No, absolutely. And the frustrating part about Jey Uso is they give him this nickname, and I'm supposed to believe he's main event Jey Uso, except every time WWE books him in a main event match, he loses. So I guess mid-card Jey Uso doesn't have a nicer ring to it, but if you want him to be main event Jey Uso, he occasionally has to win some of these main event feuds.
Yep.
And people want to sit there and say, Jey Uso isn't that good. Just look at what happened. He had a bad match at WrestleMania. I've seen that way too much. You're allowed to have.
Jimmy was hurt. I disagree completely. Jimmy was hurt. If you guys don't know, Jimmy Uso was hurt, which is more a reason he's been on the shelf. The reason that match was not as good as it was planned to be is because Jimmy got hurt during that match. So you can say, and Jimmy had the balls to go out there again and take one of the biggest hits in the main event by going out there and having Jey jump on him from off the round. Jimmy Uso is hurt. There's a reason he's not been in the WWE, guys.
Yeah, my response to that was always the simple. It's like, Jey Uso is still a great wrestler. You can have a bad match at WrestleMania and still be fine. A Jimmy injury did not help the match, and it wasn't great. But guess what? A lot of people call The Undertaker Mr. WrestleMania, or the biggest name for WrestleMania they associate with. And I bet you will not want to watch Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez again, or Undertaker versus Big Boss Man in Hell in a Cell. That was terrible.
Yeah.
So, every single person that you can think of, they probably have had a stinker at WrestleMania. It happens to everybody. So, I think the fact that some people are trying to use that against Jey Uso getting a push is just absolute insanity.
Yeah, I mean, it's been all you have to do is Google Jimmy Uso injury, and you can find out that Jimmy Uso was hurt during his match with Jey Uso during WrestleMania. So if you're blaming Jey Uso for that match, you're just not paying attention.
No, absolutely. And of course, after that, it looked like maybe a Dom and Rhea reunion, but we still don't know. Maybe Rhea's playing Dom now, and that's the beauty of this Rhea, Liv, and Dom story. They genuinely could go any direction with it, and it would still make sense. And after all that, of course, now is the perfect time. That was a 10 out of 10 video package they cut with Rowan earlier in the show. I just decided to loop it in with this segment. Oh, that really tugged at the heartstrings, him talking about not only Bray, but Harper, and about how lost he was after their deaths. Oh, my goodness. I was trying so hard not to cry at work. That was a very emotional video package. And overall, I love that they're doing that with them. They're letting them connect with the fans with these videos. And they've been absolutely phenomenal. And with this one, Gable just straight up called out Bo Dallas, had the Creed brothers jump them, which led to the rest of the Wyatt Six coming out to save Bo Dallas. Gene, what do you think about the Wyatt Six so far? And do you think the build took too long and is taking too long, or do you think it's moving at the perfect pace? Or what do you think of the whole Wyatt Six build so far?
I am going to be of the real small minority. I think that this has taken so long and it's so prolonged, and I think that they're doing a terrible job with it. I think that it's pulling on the heartstrings, which is allowing fans to believe so much that it's way better than what it is. I love the concept. I love the story. When they said we're here, okay, a little delayed, they're here. Can we now see them in action? Can we now see them in the ring? Can you now start storytelling? Nope. The next week we gotta scare Chad Gable again. Have him walk around and see those guys on pictures. I hate the concept of it. I love the Wyatt Six. I hate how long they're prolonging it. And I know I'm probably of the minority when I say this, but I think the group has such a strong concept that I just need the story to be told quicker.
Yeah, that's fair. It has been taking a while. I remember the first. Ironically, besides the tease that was in the Bray Wyatt documentary, I remember they first started doing the little teasers at night after WrestleMania.
Yeah,
I was at that Raw in Philly, and I was actually playing on my phone, and all of a sudden the lights went out and some music started playing. I was like, "What in the world?" And it turns out they were finally starting this storyline. But I don't have a problem with people that say it's taken too long, because this has taken a while. But I'm hopeful. I'm thinking that this is leading up to the Wyatt Six versus Chad Gable and his new faction there at SummerSlam. That's what I'm hoping the end game is. Then we can finally get that match out of the way. It almost feels like maybe that's why they're prolonging it, because this is more of an attraction based faction. I love the Wyatt Six, but I also acknowledge the fact that there's a very real chance that people are going to wait this long, and when these guys step into the actual ring and wrestle an actual match, they're going to be a little disappointed. Bo Dallas is a fine wrestler, but he's never a real technical wrestler. Eric Rowan, he's pretty athletic for his size, but I think Chad Gable's a perfect opponent to really bring the best out of them. But I am a little worried that people are really going to crap on him as soon as they get into the ring, because they're more of an old school storytelling kind of style, slower paced matches. And a lot of people don't seem to like that.
Yeah, well, Triple H is going a lot more towards storytelling than against technical wrestling. And that's kind of where WWE needs to be headed. I think the storytelling is more important than the technical part of wrestling. AEW had all the choreographed wrestling like down pat. They had some of the most choreographed stuff you'll ever see in your life. And I'll tell you what that got you? Some entertaining matches without a storyline to draw you in. The WWE draws you in with storyline. They draw you in with the entire story. I think that's the move. And I look, I don't care how technical a wrestler you are. Just don't be hurting people. Don't go out there and Nia Jax people. But honestly, I think that as a group, the Uncle Howdy, the Wyatt Six, I think each one of them can hold their own in a ring. The storytelling is what a lot of them missed. I think you're going to get that now.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I always worry about this because I love the Wyatt Six. I've always been a huge fan of Bray Wyatt. If I was to name my favorite wrestlers of all time, Bray Wyatt would be number 2 right behind The Undertaker. I've always loved his character and his stories.
Yeah.
And I've always been to the big storytelling aspect of things. And that's why I love this story. Because I'm big into storytelling. And even in the ring, it's why my favorite wrestlers are guys like MJF and AEW, because he slows things down and he tells a story. So I'm going to most likely love this when it hits the ring because it's a slower story-based group. But I have a gut feeling that a lot of people, for example, online are just going to be like, well, there was no 450 splash and there wasn't enough choreography for me. So I'm just worried that they're going to get crapped on because they're not like a newer style wrestler.
Yeah, but Roman got crapped on for still gets crapped on because he's not doing crazy moves and splashes. Roman is the most entertaining guy in the WWE, and he's not the most technical wrestler. Like, don't lie to yourself. Like, he's not doing much.
No, that's fair. I'm so excited for Roman. I was always a big fan of Roman. I love the Shield. They're my favorite faction. As soon as they debuted on the scene, I've always loved all 3 of them. I'm glad to see all 3 of them thriving. And then, of course, the main event of the evening. We all knew where this was headed as soon as they announced it. Sami Zayn versus Ilya Dragunov ended in a disqualification thanks to Braun Breaker, who somebody that size should not be able to move that fast. That's all I'm going to say. Like, the fact that he can build up so much speed in such little time is absolute insanity. And what I'm assuming is going to be a triple threat match at SummerSlam with these 3. Whew! I can't wait. That's going to be an absolute barn burner.
Yeah. I'm not. This is one of those storylines that does not get me off my couch. I think Ilya Dragunov is an up-and-coming wrestler, and I love his overall his aura and what he brings. I think Braun Breaker is terrible at his promos. I think he's awful on the microphone right now. And I think this is one of those storylines where you can't play Sami Zayn as the lovable loser and the underdog when he's holding the Intercontinental title. Sami needs to drop the belt. I don't think it should be the Ilya or Braun Breaker. I really think, I get it. Maybe you can drop it to Ilya and have Jey Uso beat Ilya. But I think the Intercontinental title needs to be held by someone bigger than Ilya or Braun Breaker. And I think the terrible aspect of it behind it is Sami Zayn shouldn't be holding it much longer.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm assuming it seems like they're really building on putting this title on Braun.
Yep.
That's where I'm guessing happens at SummerSlam finally. But
yeah, but if they were doing that, though, Brad, here's the problem. And look, I'm just going to be very honest. If they were going to do that, how does he get beat in Money in the Bank with one haluva kick? Like, why was it just unbeatable guy gets in the ring with Sami Zayn, and it wasn't that big. It was a clean win. One haluva kick.
That was weird to me. Like, unless Triple H is really starting to put an emphasis on the finishing moves are for finishing matches, and we're going back to the old one finisher per match and only kick out of them on special events. Sure, I'll take that. But yeah, that was strange to me. But yeah, it really seemed like it did kind of hurt him a little bit that it only took one. But maybe he'll learn, and we'll see if they kind of fix that at SummerSlam and let him kind of take more damage on that.
Hopefully, it's a hope piece for me. I'm not. This is one of those storylines I'm not excited about. I'm looking forward to Sami dropping the belt and joining back Bloodline 1.0 and being part of War Games, because that's what I really think we're headed towards.
That's been my dream.
I think you're getting Bloodline 1.0 versus Bloodline 2.0 at War Games, and I'm not kidding. I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's funny because I heard people start to make the rumor that it's not going to be Sammy. That they're going to bring in some more new members, and
I don't want any more Samoans. No, I'm sorry. That sounds bad. I don't want any more. We're
no,
good. We've had our fill. And first of all, if you want to bring any more in, make sure they're not Tama Tonga. Jesus Christ. How many things is that guy going to screw up?
you kind of knew you were getting with him. Like the first night he was there, and he didn't get out of the ring in time, and the ref had to pull himself out of the ring in his debut night.
Oh,
And then he just butchered the low blow. So I saw the one theory, and I thought it was kind of stupid. They're like, well, Jacob Fatu's a double agent, and he's going to turn and join the Usos and Roman Reigns. And my first thought was, why even have a War Games match at that point? You're teaming the two most dominant members in Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns on the same team. Nobody's going to top that unless you're bringing in The Rock to kind of help even out the odds. But I thought that's absolutely insane because that's just, at that point, in my opinion, that's just way too overpowered. There's no way you can team up Jacob and Roman and expect like a competitive match. Those two would just kind of run through everybody.
Listen. That tells you how little I care about the Intercontinental title right now, which is a bad thing for WWE.
No, that's fair. That is absolutely fair.
I'm looking forward to Sami Zayn being part of the bloodline again.
No, that was my initial hope that it's Bloodline 1.0 versus 2.0. And I think maybe you end the match, let Bloodline 2.0 get the big win, let all the new guys get over, maybe some help from The Rock. Might be a great way to kind of kick off a Rock versus Roman feud is have them interfere in War Games at Survivor Series.
That's going to be Netflix day one. I'm telling you right now. That's where I think The Rock comes back is Netflix day one. I don't think he has anything to do with War Games, but just long-term predictions from me. Nothing crazy.
No, that's fair. Netflix day one, I feel like they're going to make sure to have all hands on deck. Because they've already said it. Like, okay, Cena's going to be there. I'm sure The Rock will probably be there. I'm sure they'll pull out pretty much every single big name they possibly can to be there. And I'm looking forward to it. And it'll be the start of the Royal Rumble build, so I'll take it.
Yep, I agree 100%.
And speaking of John, we are getting the official John Cena retirement tour 2025. He's hanging up the jorts. They're getting ascended to the rafters. My question is, there's rumors that they're going to put the title on John, let him break the tie between him and Ric Flair. Gene, if you are booking the John Cena retirement tour, are you putting the title on John Cena?
No. Are you out of your mind? What storyline do you screw up by giving John Cena, who hasn't won a match in 2 years? Like, are we serious right now? Why? Because it's emotionally a feel good story for John Cena to break the record? It's a terrible idea. It's an awful idea. What storyline are you screwing up? You're giving him Gunther's title, stopping his reign? You're going to give him Cody's title? What storyline are you screwing up to throw John Cena in the ring? Come on. Get out of here with that. That's so ridiculous. And anybody that thinks that, you just must not believe in Triple H. Just say you don't believe in him. Just say.
Man, that's fair. If Vince was still in charge, I would say actually taking the title off Gunther for Cena sounds like the absolute most Vince thing that he would do. Got to let him beat the big bad evil foreign heel. But I don't think Triple H will do that. I think that John Cena retirement tour will be its own thing, and for good reason. One, they would kind of mess up everything that they're doing with the titles. But I think the bigger thing is he doesn't need it. John Cena by himself is going to sell out arenas. He's going to sell pay-per-views or PLEs, whatever you want to call them. He doesn't need the title. So you might
I just can't imagine the last time he was on WrestleMania, he lost to Austin Theory. But this time we're going to have him win the world heavyweight title. Come on. Like, this is so dumb. The last match that John Cena was in, he lost to Solo Sikoa.
Yeah,
stop it.
Yeah, I will say I would like to see John Cena be a bit closer to the more dominant Cena that I saw growing up. Let him go on a nice run. Build up John Cena to maybe put somebody over at the end of this run. So I'm gonna hate it if it's just John Cena coming back and losing every match he's in. Like, build him up, let him be Super Cena off to the side. Let him win like 20, 30 matches in a row or whatever. Just have him dominate. And then have one of his last matches be him maybe putting over whoever you think the future is. Maybe he gives Ilya a big rub if you think that's the guy. Maybe Damian Priest beats him at the end.
Can I give you a long-term storyline that's in my head?
Yeah.
All right. So Cody Rhodes is going to beat Solo. Roman returns. The bloodline issues that come of it. After that, you need Cody in a new feud. What feud do you put him in? A Randy Orton heel turn. The Viper heel turns on his old friend Cody Rhodes. Cody fights him at War Games. Maybe fights him at Rumble. The issue becomes Cody Rhodes is getting beat up, and here comes John Cena to save the day. You get a John Cena versus Randy Orton WrestleMania with a heel Randy and a face Cena. Cena's already said he wants the last match to be Randy Orton. He wants to run it back with him one more time. Orton's too big not to have on WrestleMania. You're not putting him over for the title. So that is your matchup for WrestleMania.
I think that would be the perfect John Cena final match for WrestleMania. Him versus Randy Orton. It's ironic, right? Because when this same feud happened in like 2013, the last time we saw it, everybody was just sick of it. They're like, oh, we never want to see John Cena versus Randy Orton ever again. But now, yeah, I think everybody's ready for that one final match between the two before he calls it quits. And what better place to do it than WrestleMania? I know the three vets I want to see John Cena face. I want to see him run it back for sure with Orton. I want to see him run it back with AJ Styles. Those two always had phenomenal matches and chemistry. And of course, I need to see one more with CM Punk. Those guys
I could do without the AJ Styles.
What's up?
I could do without the AJ Styles.
No, if I had to choose one to get rid of in that group, it would be AJ. But I just remember those matches that he had at like the Rumble and SummerSlam. And they just always brought out the absolute best in each other. And I'd love to see them try to recreate that magic one more time.
I never could stand AJ Styles. Never.
Okay. Oh, never a big AJ Styles guy?
Never.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching.
This is what I mean. He's one of those guys that's technically better than a lot of people because he's an incredible wrestler, his spots, but I never bought in or had any believability to his character. And that's what I mean when I say storyline means more than your overall technique.
And I'll always agree with the storyline being you need a story to really build up matches. Like I said, all my favorites are more like story-driven wrestlers that can wrestle, but there's kind of storytellers first.
Yeah.
I'll give AJ a lot of. He did a lot of great work in like. I think the issue with AJ Styles a lot of the times he's done some awesome work in WWE, but if you want like the full grasp of how great AJ Styles was, a lot of people haven't actually seen peak AJ Styles because a lot of the best AJ Styles work was in TNA in that like 2005 to like 2014 run. AJ was on an absolute heater. The only time I really hated AJ Styles was the only time I really didn't like AJ Styles was when they tried to do the storyline in TNA where they try to make him Ric Flair 2.0, and that wasn't great. But a lot of people, if you haven't seen the AJ Styles TNA work, like his matches and character work there, that's where you're going to get peak AJ Styles.
And good, I just never believed in the character. So the phenomenal one was just always just, I don't know, corny to me.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. But like John Cena's ending his career next year, that's all the topics that I got for today. Gene, did you have anything you wanted to add, sir?
No, man, I'm just looking forward to hopping on here as much as I possibly can with you and Mo, and hopefully we get Mo next week. Get the three of us, and one of the things I want to talk about is like our top 5 wrestlers of all time, and like that sounds like something we can get into next week and really go over our favorite 5 wrestlers. I will say this: my favorite 5 wrestlers are not my Mount Rushmore, and maybe next week we'll do our favorite 5, and the following week we do Mount Rushmore. But I would love to get into more of those hypothetical conversations of the greatest of all time versus your favorites of all time.
No, I'm absolutely down, and I'm the same way. I guarantee you, half of my favorites are not on anybody's Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
But
let me talk to you,
everybody. We definitely appreciate you all tuning in. We're gonna tune in. We're gonna be back next Tuesday, and the plan is the week after that, we're gonna be back live for SummerSlam. So next week we're gonna do our favorites of all time, and we'll talk a little SummerSlam. So definitely be looking forward to that. Thank you all for tuning in, and everybody, have a great night.
Take care, y'all.